the inside of us, faded like a canvas, black and gray, but we still put it on display. We say we wanna be free from our problems, and we say we want to walk away from our sins, and we say we want to put it all at the altar, but we never tell him what it is. I don't want to tell another lie, even if it's just a joke. I don't want to be mean for no reason. I don't want to preach another sermon after shooting up. I just want it all to go away, complete deliverance. Today, right now, this hour. Today, right now, this hour. Doing all we can just to get a piece of what the world can offer us. It'll never be enough to sustain us here on this earth. The inside of us, faded like a canvas, but we still put it on display. We say we wanna be free from our problems, and we say we want to walk away from our sins, and we say we want to put it all at the altar, but we never tell him what it is. I don't want to tell another lie, even if it's just a joke. I don't want to be mean for no reason. I don't want to preach another sermon after shooting up. I just want it all to go away, complete deliverance. Today, right now, this hour. Today, right now, this hour. You can look at me and tell I want to change. I'll never be the same, so take the pain away. You can look at me and tell I want to change. I'll never be the same, so take the pain away. You can look at me and tell I want to change. I'll never be the same, so take the pain away. You can look at me and tell I want to change. I'll never be the same, so take the pain away. You can look at me and tell I want to change. I'll never be the same, so take the pain away, away. You can look at me and tell I want to change. I'll never be the same, so take the pain away. I want the best of you, Lord, even if I have to let go of all the things I still do.
You are listening to Serenity Radio Network on Jerry Royce Live Worldwide at PositivePower21.org. We thank you for joining us. You can also find us on Elation Radio. Serenity is a Christian-based multicultural empowerment station that focuses on the mind, body, and spirit. The program specializes in bringing to the listeners the very best from the healing arts community on the subjects of self, health care, spiritual healing, and kingdom living. Serenity Radio is sponsored by the Serenity Weight Loss and Detoxification Program. To enroll, contact Michelle Edmonds, a.k.a. the Godmother, at 404-445-8579, or hit them up on Facebook at Serenity Weight Loss. The next voice that you hear will be that of our awesome host. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Serenity Radio Network. My name is Michelle Edmonds, and yeah, they do call me the Godmother. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us for this after-dinner dessert. We appreciate you. I see all the many people who have joined us. We appreciate that. Well, we're going to first cover this broadcast with a prayer. Father God, may the words of my mouth and the voice of my heart be acceptable in your sight. You are my Lord. You are my strength. You are my Redeemer. In Jesus' name, amen. And we are listening to Weight Gain is a Detox Problem. We started that series last week, everyone. And we're going to continue it with part 2 this evening. And we're going to keep going until the Lord tells us we can release it. And by the way, just a little recap over last week. Just in case you missed it, but I do want you to go back and listen to the broadcast from part 1 of this series. Now, last week we talked a little bit about, we gave you 2 homework assignments. That was the very last thing that we left off with. We said we want you to clean out an area of your home where there is clutter, be it a closet, garage, bathroom, because we said when you need to detox emotionally, it is easier to detox the physical first. This is why the Serenity Weight Loss and Detoxification program works so well. The cleansing process is, for many of you, your first real step at cleaning out the junk, but it is not the only step. If you feel you have run into plateaus while you're in the program, it is because you ran into some emotional poop that is not moving. Does that make sense, everyone? You think it is your weight loss plateau. The program is not working for you anymore because that is what social media tells you, but it is actually emotional poop that you've run into. Number 2, we said you're fat. The fat itself serves you, that the fat is your snowsuit, so to speak, that protects your heart. I gave you, let's take one example. Well, emotional poop is a very simple one, but let's dig a little bit deeper. One example is, for example, if your weight loss goal, you may say you want to get down to 140, but you may have a glass ceiling goal and a panic weight goal. Now, the glass ceiling goal is quite different from the panic weight. The glass ceiling weight is really the one that you're not telling anyone. It's the one that is where you're most convenient. So, for example, you may say, I want to get to 140, but your glass ceiling is really just below 200, because below 200, you're able to keep all of the same clothes and not throw anything away. But you really know at 4.5, that you should not be just below 200, that you really should be 140. So that's what we mean by a glass ceiling. Now let's talk about the panic weight. And by the way, I want you to check out the prior broadcast on this as well. It's the glass ceiling weight loss goal. You'll see it around. We'll post it around also. But just to recap, the panic ceiling, the panic level is where you come into the program. That's usually, for most ladies in particular, it's over 200. That's when you go, oh my God, let me get this weight off. So usually 211, 216, 220, that's very often for many ladies the panic level. For men, many times the panic level is not until 250, and then the goal is just to get down to 200 to 210. But the panic weight for ladies very often is over 200, and then your glass ceiling is simply to get below. Now, that's a very tricky serpent. We talked about that last week, y'all. You remember? We talked about those serpents, those little sneaky little ways that we deceive ourselves, or we are deceived. Because if you are female and you're 4.5, let's say, and you are merely have a glass ceiling to get below 200, you know that is not your healthy weight loss goal. And so some of the examples of emotional poop that needs to be detoxed might be as simple as you just haven't gotten past the cosmetic issues of weight loss, the glass ceiling versus your panic weight, okay? Now, another reason for why you have emotional poop, you may have issues that you haven't dealt with, maybe in your relationship, and you're just afraid to deal with them. You're afraid to express it, but never fear, though. Never fear, because it's still, the physical detox is still the way to start. That's the good news, everyone. The physical detox is still the way to start. So even when and as many of you know, I'm a counseling psychologist by training, and I'm nutritionally trained. But even when I was in psychotherapy, I still sent people on a physical detox, because we could sit there and talk about what Mom did when you were 3 years old forever. Sometimes you guys just clammed up on me. So many times, I would say 99.9% of the time, I got more progress out of you if I talk to you about your health and we just start talking about detoxing and cleansing the body. Now you're willing to start opening up. So even though there is emotional poop, y'all, don't panic. Don't feel like, oh, my God, I can't start any of this. I got to lay on the couch. No. Don't panic, because the physical way to start is the best and the easiest way anyway. So don't worry, okay? But now, let's move on and talk a little bit about, pick up where we left off last week. Let's give you some data. Conservative data tells us that 61% of the U.S. population is either obese or overweight. African Americans are the highest category of obesity of all. As many as 80% of all African American women fall into one of the two categories, that's obese or overweight. While estimates are lower for Latinas and American Indians, the rates are still epidemic proportions. But what is very important to know is that the African American race is the heavier overall of all races worldwide, even heavier than Latinas. And within the African American race, African American women are heavier than their men. That means African American women are the heaviest people in the world. Now, as an African American psychotherapist and nutritionist, I need to be the one to tell you that. You see, Oprah really can't speak on this, and we spoke a little bit about that last week. We talked a little bit about serpents in social media and serpents that are around in our world, in our environment. And a serpent is one where people speak with it not from a position of strength. And so this Oprah effect that everyone was expecting when she purchased 10% of Weight Watchers, and they predicted, oh, well, the stock's going to go through the roof. But the Oprah effect didn't have an effect this time. And it's because even in this age of Facebook and social media and Snapchat chat and all this stuff, authenticity is still a hot commodity. It's still valued. So even people who love Oprah, even people especially who are overweight and have weight challenges, even they knew, I'm not going to buy it. Not on this one. Oprah is not the expert. Let's go on now with our statistics. Obesity is a disease. Obesity is a disease. That's right, I said it. In 2014, did you know the American Medical Association declared obesity and overweight, remember that's two different categories of being heavy, declared a disease. But what they didn't do, everyone, they didn't tell you what they meant by that. And so I really fought the AMA for not being explicit about what they meant by an addiction. But this broadcast, we're going to be talking, this is exactly what they mean by it being an addiction. Some of these issues that we're digging up is what they mean. But let me give you the short answer to what they mean. Overweight or obesity is an addiction, just like cocaine, heroin, alcoholism, and, yes, foodies. We're going to call them foodies. And so what do we mean by an addiction? You might be thinking, well, I'm not the same as a coke addict. Well, that's the problem with the AMA. They didn't want to tell you this either. Let me explain what they meant. The disease of addiction means that it is a behavior that you do regardless of whether or not it is affecting your health. In other words, if someone didn't check you, you would be putting your health in increasingly more danger with each passing month. Just like a cocaine addict, guess what? A foodie also places their health in increasing danger with every passing month. And so that's why they've declared obesity an addiction. Now, I want to clarify. Sugar is addictive. But when they say foodies are addicts, they're not talking about sugar. And let me explain to you why. That is because a foodie can also not eat. Unlike a coke addict or a heroin addict or an alcoholic, where they will be late for work just to have their drug of choice. The difference with a foodie, and this is why when someone calls a foodie an addict, it's so confusing and it didn't really stick. And something that doesn't stick, it therefore doesn't get taught, and no one really learns or benefits from it, except for the medical doctors and the insurance agencies. But if a foodie is different from a coke addict or an alcoholic, because a foodie is the only addict that would voluntarily walk away or avoid their drug of choice. And that is why Serenity team members who are in the broadcast with me, that is why I get on you so much about skipping your meals. I talked to some other people earlier today. As you know, I talk to people all the time. And they will very quickly share, oh, I often skip my meals. They share that as if that is okay. It's almost as if to show you, see, I don't really have a serious problem. That's the deception. That's one of the serpents that swims around in the pool of obesity and being overweight. That serpent has you convinced that, you see, you don't really have a problem. Half the time you're not eating anyway. In fact, you can go all day and not eat. That's a serpent. Why do I say that? Why do I use such strong language? Because your addiction is an addiction where control is the bigger issue. And so that would include not eating when you should or overeating when you shouldn't. Did you catch that, listeners? It means someone who has a control issue is going to not eat when they should. Let me be more specific. If you are a Serenity team member, anybody who starts weight loss, by the way, but specifically Serenity, you come into the program and you say to me, oh, I'm eating an average of 1 to 2 meals a day. Let me say this. 99% of everyone who starts Serenity comes in during intake telling me that they eat an average of 1 to 2 meals a day. Now, the world tells you to eat 3 times a day. Am I right? And anyone that's in the broadcast room that's in Serenity, you feel free to jump in and speak up or ask a question. All other guests, if you don't mind, I'll ask that you stay quiet and maybe send me a chat and ask your questions later. But Serenity team members, I do want you to feel free to jump in with a question or a comment. So, the only addicts that will voluntarily avoid or skip their drug of choice are foodies. A cocaine addict will never, ever go, oops, I gotta go, and a refrigerator is full of cocaine. They'll never rush out the door and say, oh, I'm going to be late for work, I gotta go. Are you kidding me? If that refrigerator is full of cocaine, they're going to go, put those brakes on, and I don't care who's waiting for them at the other end. I don't care how much that job pays. They're going to stop and take a hit. Not a foodie. But now that's why the serpent is so sneaky with regard to foodies. And that's why we began last broadcast with Genesis. It is because in your case, in the foodie's case, because you so willingly skip your meals, it's hard to identify that this is an addiction. And therefore, you don't treat it as such. So I caution all of you that if you're skipping meals, that is not a good sign. That is the flip side of your addiction manifesting itself. Now, so is overeating, and so is eating the wrong foods. All of that was to address what did the American Medical Association mean last 2 years ago. I believe it was June 13th to be exact. What do you mean that obesity and overweight is an addiction. That is what is meant. Compulsive behavior around food is an addiction. Okay, let's move on. I know these facts may be new to you, they may be shocking, and you might even be tempted to disagree. However, before you do, you must be at your ideal weight. Isn't that a blip? So you can't really disagree until you're at your ideal weight, because that tells me you don't know what you don't know. Yet in order for an individual to attain and maintain their ideal weight, a certain amount of emotional house cleaning and mind renewal must take place. Do you remember back in the 60s when everybody was, doing self-actualization and, they were up in Woodstock, upstate New York, and kind of doing, being insight-oriented meditation and getting to know you and hugging and talking about love. Now, this is on radio. I'm going to put this out there. I'm betting we're going to start swinging back to that, because notice how much hate is in the world right now, obesity epidemic now, and I'm predicting that some of that insight-oriented psychotherapy, get to know you, love movement is going to return, because actually that's a lot of why the social ills exist. Let's talk some more. Let's talk about social ills. Okay. All addicts. I know this is rough. Hang on to your seat. Hang on to your seat. All addicts. We did a survey, and all addicts, by the way, have a penchant for control over the environment. Think about it. An alcoholic comes in, they call the shots, honey. They walk in drunk from work, the whole household is turned topsy-turvy. By the way, mentally ill people you may not realize this, are control freaks. In many ways you think they don't know what they're doing. They do. They really do. What they do know is that they are calling the shots. They know that when they get sick, the whole household jumps. The whole family pops. In other words, they may be sick, they may be bipolar, you call them schizophrenic, paranoid schizophrenic, you can call them whatever you want. But below that core, there's still an element of awareness that they know they are in control of the environment. Ironically, the sicker they are. Well, the same applies to addicts. Control is the overriding need. Remember last week we said the fat is the overriding purpose. So fat itself protects, but now the overriding drive is this week. The overriding drive is control. By the way, I'm going to repeat one more time. All addicts have a strong desire to control. And anyone who's lived with an addict can tell you one thing that bothers you about it is you felt very much out of control. Okay, let's go further. Let's go further. What on earth would trigger this mess? We did a survey, and we're going to end with this survey, and then we're going to give you another assignment. We did a survey of over 10,000 people who are overweight. Some of them we interviewed literally in a parking lot of Walmarts, and then most were actual team members of Serenity Weight Loss and Detoxification Program. You can write this down if you want to. 100%, listen to this, 100% of all ladies that we interviewed weighing 242 pounds or more all said they had been molested. And by the way, Oprah, notice Oprah falls in that category. She too was molested. Molestation or sexual assault hit 50% of all those who weigh between 249 and 200 pounds. In other words, let me rephrase that. Of the group who weigh between 249 to 200 pounds, down to 200, 50% of them said they had been molested or sexually assaulted. Let's go further. All weight categories, 35% said they were dealing with parental abandonment issues. 10% of all people who were overweight or obese said they were dealing with family secrets, such as a father who was a relentless womanizer, or a parent who has multiple children by different mates, creating confusion and distrust. And listen to this, how this went full circle. Or you had a very unpredictable home environment where your parent was an alcoholic or mentally ill. You see, the person who lives with an alcoholic or with mental illness feels very much out of control over their environment. Now, the person who is perpetrating it is in control because you're the one that's popping around trying to figure out how to handle the daddy or sister this time. But that stress is your trigger to your own addiction, and it may not even manifest for many years later. It typically, write this down, it typically manifests after college or after high school. And that's why if you are a member of the Serenity Weight Loss and Detoxification Program, you'll notice that I'll ask you, how much did you weigh at age 18? That is typically when the issues of control or being controlled, the switch is flipped. We're going to call it like a light switch. That's when the switch goes on, and it seems to typically manifest after high school. You'll notice that your weight just took off. Let me tell you, if you have any ladies on the broadcast line, very often the next time it happens is after pregnancy. Now, you're going to say, oh, ever since I had the baby, I can't get the weight off. Now you know you're a liar. The devil's a liar. Because you know that baby you're talking about is now 32 years old. It's not, no question. Ladies gain weight when they're pregnant. There's no question about that. We're talking about keeping the weight on 50, 60, 70 pounds after that baby is now 32, 25 years old, 32 years old. That's not the baby. That's issues. That was when you became very much out of control over your environment, was while you were pregnant. And you felt, oh, my God, everything I do is out of my control. Everything is for somebody else. I have to do this for this person, that person. It's when you felt very much out of control. And everyone, you will find, you will be hard-pressed to find anything else that you have total control over other than what you put in your mouth. Let me rephrase that. What you put in your mouth is 100% in your control, unlike anything else in your world. So that is why this eating thing, that is why it's in Genesis. We talked about it last week, Genesis 3 and 5. And it's all throughout Genesis, specifically Genesis 3 and 5. That is why the Bible starts with it as your first example for where you are going to mess this up. Now, you might be thinking, well, if that's true, how did everybody miss this? That's why we're on That's why we're on this broadcast. That's why we are doing this series. Weight gain is a detox problem. Detoxing from what? Last week we said detoxing from fear. Hence, you protect your heart from anyone getting too close to you. Remember we said that? The fat itself protects your heart. It keeps people at bay. And number 2, tonight we talked about how the trigger or the real benefit is that you feel you are in control over your environment, because food is the single only thing all of us controls 100%, putting it in our mouth. You can't control anything 100% other than the food you put in your mouth and the thoughts you think. That is where your true power comes from, my listening audience. Your thoughts is where your true power comes from. You never control your environment with your mouth. With that said, we're at the bottom of the hour. I always have to give Serenity team members first shot at any questions. If you want to ask a question, you may do so. We have about 2 minutes left. If you don't wish to do so because this is a broadcast, please feel free to send me a text or a PM on Facebook. I'll be glad to answer your question. I know that weight loss is a detox problem. So detoxing from what? Let's end with this thought. Your homework is, the first time we talked about you're detoxing from fear. And the way you get rid of that, get that fear moving, fear of your heart getting hurt, is to detox and clean out one of those closets. Now, this week, what I'd like you to do, I'd like you to do a different homework. This week, remember you're detoxing from anger. Nobody likes when daddy or mommy comes home drunk. That made you angry. Nobody liked it when your sister or your brother or your aunt, I had an aunt that dealt with mental illness, and so that's probably what propelled my interest in psychology. Nobody likes it when your loved one freaks out on you and you hear you have guests home from school. That made you angry. So broadcast number 1, part 1, you're detoxing from fear of your heart being hurt. Now, part 2, you're detoxing. We got to detox anger and your desire, therefore, to control your environment. How do you detox from anger? Remember, physical stuff first. Physical stuff first. So you go ahead and you join the fall cleanse listening audience. Get that physical poop moving. Come on, get enrolled. You can reach me at 404-445-8579 or hit me up on Facebook at Serenity Weight Loss. For those of you already in the program and for those of you who will be joining, the assignment that I want you to do this time, in order for you to feel as if you have control over your environment again, you have to think with your mind. The one thing I want you to do is write down what your purpose in life is. You feel very out of control when you don't know what you're here for. Notice Rick Warren. You remember him. He wrote The Purpose Driven. Remember that? And then, do you remember he got popular because he started the Daniel fast in his church? You remember that? Isn't it interesting that the book Purpose Driven came before the church weight loss program where he lost, I believe it was 100 pounds. But the book Purpose Driven came before the weight loss. I'm suggesting that's not coincidence. So what I want you to do, listening audience, is this. I want you to write down your purpose for being here. We're going to do it in the same order that Rick Warren. Now, we're not going to have the benefit of I believe it was Dr. Oz and Dr. Amen, who were also those who helped him implement the Daniel program at his church. We don't have to get all that fancy. You get enrolled in the Serenity program in the fall cleanse. That's the physical. Your emotional assignment for this week, I want you to write down your purpose in life. You can go ahead and get Rick Warren's book if you want. Google that. But all I want you to do is write down one sentence. I am here for. Don't give me a generic to be kind to people, to serve people. I want you to give me something specific. I'm going to use myself as an example. My purpose for being on this earth is to teach people the emotional causes for weight gain and to teach them to live healthy without drugs, scalpel, and fat-free living. My purpose is to teach people the emotional triggers to weight gain and to assist them in their wellness journey without scalpel, meaning surgery, medication, and teach them fat-free living. With that said, my name is Michelle Edmonds, and yes, they call me the Godmother. We thank you so very much, everyone, for joining the broadcast. We appreciate that. With that said, everyone, we'll be here next week, same time, bat channel. If you are a Serenity team member and you're looking for your instructions for the next section of the program, what to do after the herbal teas and what to do the next step. We have a boot camp we're going to call Boot Camp 102 tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Go ahead and go ahead and join us, jump into class. Send me a text if you plan to be there. Well, that's everyone. We thank you, we love you, and we appreciate you so very much. Have a wonderful, wonderful week. We'll be here next week. Bye-bye.
Order my steps in your word, dear Lord. Lead me, guide me every day. Send your anointing, Father, I pray. Order my steps in your word. Please order my steps in your word. Humbly I ask you, teach me your will. While you're working, Lord, help me be still. Satan is busy, but God, you so real. Order my steps in your word. Please order my steps. Order my steps. Right on my tongue, Lord, let your word edify. Let the words of my mouth be accepted in thy sight. Take charge of my thoughts both day and night. Please order my steps in your word. Please order my steps in your word. I want to walk worthy. I want to walk worthy. My call is to fulfill. Please order my steps, Lord. And I'll do your blessed will. This world is ever changing, but you are still the same. If you order my steps, I'll praise your steps in your word. Please, Jesus. Order my tongue in your word. I need you. Guide my feet in your word. Wash my heart in your word. Show me how to walk. In your words, show me how to talk in your words. When I need a brand new song to sing, show me how to let your praises ring in your words. Steps in your word. Come on right now, Jesus. Order my steps in your word. the left, nor to the right, 'cause you are my guiding light. Order my steps in your word. 'Cause I'm gonna stay right here till you order my steps. Order my steps in your word.